The first thing that I want to start with is, excuse me, a potential apology. My building decided to have our new water heater installed today. So every few minutes, I'm getting awful noise coming up through my floors of banging and scraping and sometimes bubbling. So if you can hear that, I'm sorry. And I may spontaneously mute every now and then to spare your sanity, if not my own. So that is what that is if you do hear anything. Dawn, do you want to start the recording? Oh, you did start the recording. Great. So this is the agenda. I've got it up on screen right now. It's a lot of points, but a lot of them are going to be pretty brief, some of which are updates, but a couple of these are things we're going to really want to dig into. And I have a couple things from my email this week that we will also touch on, though a lot of that will be incorporated throughout this anyway. So if I can turn it over to Sam for a second, she's just going to give a real brief update on this item type consolidation project.
Hi, everybody.
Howdy.
You can hear me, right? Okay, awesome. So I know you've all, and probably in many different meetings at this point, heard the item type consolidation story, so I'm going to spare you that. But we just wanted, as Scott said, to give you a brief update on where we are. So we had consolidated the video item types first. Since the September meeting that we had with you all, we did move forward to consolidate the audio as well. So we currently have, I think at last count, six libraries, not including the 3 SWAN 100, that are actually using both the new audio and video. So those interest in those projects is continuing to grow, and we're still getting those tickets, and we're still incorporating those consultations in with our fine free meetings and things like that. So, you know, you may or may not be hearing from us again, but we did move forward with those audio item types as well, so in addition to cutting down the 37 Blu-ray and DVD and video item types down to, I think, 7 or 8. Sorry, I should have this memorized by now. We are looking to cut down the list of 16 audio types to 4. So you can see where we are with this project, and it's just continuing to move along. And unless anyone has any specific questions, I guess that's my update.
Well, there was one
okay.
that Carrie had posed to me through email, and I just wanted to sort of talk about with everybody because it was a really good question. The concern was particularly around Blu-ray item types, video item types, but it'll apply to other places. What are we planning for that potential loss of granularity in reporting if you are relying on item types for things? And will there be an item category a response to that problem? And the answer is yes, we are considering that as a potential solution, but we're not planning to move on it quite yet. There are a couple of reasons why I sort of have a self-imposed kind of moratorium on considering item category changes. The largest of which, I guess I'll just be honest, is this Aspen project that we're going to talk about a little bit later. We are going into a pilot with the Aspen discovery layer. And the way, if that is something we move forward on and adopt SWAN wide, if that pilot goes well, then that's really going to change the way that we look at item categories, because a lot of our item categories, well, 2 of them at least, are feeding enterprise data in a way that they're not going to have to be feeding Aspen data. So it would open up the door for us to really step back and retool how we do item categories as a whole. And so to make a change for item type consolidation or add something now just to make another change 6 months, a year in the future seems a little premature. And so we're just going to sort of step back and let this pilot play out. And then when we know more about our immediate future when it comes to discovery, we will then look at item types kind of I keep saying item types, item categories more holistically, and bring in this aspect of needing to fill in some of these gaps with the item type consolidation project. So if it is something that you're waiting on a solid answer on before making a choice about item type consolidation, then that's totally fine, of course, but you'll probably be waiting at least a handful of months longer.
Yeah, thank you for addressing that. I know that came up. You said this question was from Carrie, right? I know this came up in our consultation with Batavia, and that's why I like doing these one-on-one, because some people have concerns about that and some people haven't. So some people are just ready to move forward sooner than others, and that's totally fine.
Right, right.
Dot, it's Carrie.
Hi.
Would it be possible would you even consider putting a Blu-ray category just temporarily as an item cat 4? Because we use item cat 4s for things that we put labels on. And our Blu-ray is actually a label. And I didn't know, I don't expect an answer, but if you could even consider that as a workaround, because I really want to cut down on our item types.
We can look at that. We can, maybe we can chat about that after the meeting
Okay.
next week, possibly. Item Cat 4 has become sort of a beast. And so on the one hand, I'm hesitant to make it beastier, but on the other hand, I mean, it already sort of is there. So yeah, we can think about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Right. So that's are there any questions about this project? No. Great. Right, and so now I'm also going to turn it over again to Claudia to just give another update on the sort of cataloging training that she has been working on, and that she talked about last month with the pre-cat training, but now we sort of moved on to a new phase.
Hi everyone, this is Claudia. I just want to let you know that we have launched our first online self-paced training courses. I developed the Creating Precats and Crystal Vela developed the Page Management. And both courses are available on the support site under tutorial and training resources. And yes, and I am placing the link on the chat if you're curious to take a look. These courses are intended for new staff and anyone who wants a little bit of reinforcement on creating precats or just review things and with page management as well. And I have started developing the serials course, a self-paced course on serials. So that's coming soon, maybe by the end of the year. So if anyone wants to give the courses a try, it's there on the support site. We'd love to hear some feedback. And that's it.
Yeah, the course seems pretty popular. We've gotten some good feedback about it already, and hopefully, as more people see it, we will start to see cleaner precats and easier onboarding for new libraries and new staff. So
Yes.
yes. And Claudia did mention she's developing a serials course, which is sort of a look at serials from the top down, how to use serial controls and set up their controls, and how to do check-in and the cataloging and how to deal with weeklies and all of that. But one of the big topics within that is going to be serial call numbers, of course, because those are always, our favorite. And so I have that on the agenda today because we have to cover some things about serial call numbers in a minute. So I'm actually excited to talk about that. First, I wanted to also, and I realize this is very presentation heavy at the beginning. I promise I will stop talking at you pretty soon. But I wanted to just really quickly go over while I had you the SWAN 100 onboarding. And when this migration happens later this month in December, just what you can expect, and especially as catalogers, what you can expect to see. And the answer, like the short answer to that is thankfully not much. It should be pretty quiet. I don't know if anybody recalls the Green Hills migration. I think that was pretty low impact on the cataloging operations as well. But I did just share in the chat a link to the support site. Support.swanlibraries.net/swan100 is kind of our information portal for this project, and mostly it's been used by us internally in our 3 new libraries, but it does have information on the migration timeline right here at the top. So just so you know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of the catalog. So on the week of November 23rd, there's going to be a technical services freeze just for those 3 new libraries, and that's when I'm going to receive their 3 different MARC extracts of all of their catalog data. And at that point, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with Green Hills, which is to run it through kind of process that I put together that compares their MARC data with our MARC data, finds match points, and determines where their records would best fit within our catalog. So like Green Hills, most of their bibliographic data is not going to come into SWAN at all. I think we're in the high 90s percentage-wise, 95% cumulatively between the 3 libraries for how many records are coming in that are just going to be attaching items to existing SWAN records. And so that I hope is, eases part of the burden. It also avoids having to do that large duplication process we had to do when the new 19 joined us. So that should be pretty quiet. So throughout that week of November 23rd, and Thanksgiving week, I'm going to be doing that work. And then starting on the 30th, that's this line right here, November 30th to December 6th. This is when their catalog data and items are going to be loaded. And I'm not certain exactly within that week what that's going to look like. We have 3 different MARC extracts for each library, 1 for each library, which are being imported by 3 different Sociodynamics staff, data loaders, we called them. And so they will do their work throughout that week. And so I'm not really certain when we'll see bibliographic data coming in exactly, but you'll see that start to trickle in. And then at the end of that week, December 5th and 6th is when we're going to do we're going to do that, our reindexing. And yeah, then once everything's, reindexed, it'll of course all be searchable and all of that. So you may have, you won't run into any problems throughout the week of November 30th, December 6th, pulling up records. The only thing that might happen, and I don't think it will, it'd be a terrible impact, but if a bibliographic record from one of these new libraries does come into our system, because we didn't have it previously, it might not be searchable that week. I don't expect that there will be a lot of new records that I don't think that'll create duplicates. I don't think that it's going to really be new items. That's probably old and rather underused items in their collections. So I don't think we'll be looking for them anyway, but it is just something to consider that although they'll be in there that first week, they may not be searchable right away within Symphony. And right, once they go live, then we go live that week of the 7th. I think the actual go live date is the 9th here. But starting after that reindex is when, on the 7th, is when the bibliographic services team is going to dive into the cleanup process, because we do the best we can to match all these records, but we're going to have a good number of weeks of cleanup after that. And some of that is stuff that I'm aware of already. Like serials, we just are going to have to go through a lot of work on serials in general, just making sure they got to the right place, particularly with the weeklies when we have a number of different records that matching doesn't always work out. Other multi-volume materials tend to float around a little bit, and sometimes they don't find a match. So there'll also be some deduplication that's necessary to do. And we'll have to deal with some things around travel guides and those types of things. Graphic novels will probably require some cleanup, and that is just something to bear in mind. What I'm not expecting this time is having to do, I know when the new 19 came, or am I thinking of Green Hills? It's possibly both. We had to do some decoupling of standard print books and large print books. And I don't anticipate that happening. I did take a close look at the large print records that we are getting in from the 3 new libraries, and they seem to be in pretty good order. So I'm not too concerned about that, but it is something we'll check on. So,
hey, Scott, quick
yes.
question before you move on. The reindexing of SWAN, all libraries are down or just the new 3?
That'll have to be everybody. We'll all be in offline
Okay.
mode that Saturday the 5th and possibly into the 6th.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And is that date finalized yet, or is that still a projected date?
That is a final date as far as John, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason I'm showing this now is because I believe we did confirm it.
We did, yes.
Okay,
Those are final dates.
good.
So around this time, if we do notice some duplicates, would you like us to submit them as normal, or should we hold off for a little bit until things kind of calm down?
There's no reason not to submit something. If you see something, say something, and we'll be happy to respond. We'll still be monitoring tickets and making these things. So if you something, it'll help us prioritize basically that this
Okay,
is being looked
awesome.
at. So yeah, it's definitely go ahead and do that. Yeah, and it's going to be impossible for us to identify every last thing too. So right, so that's the SWAN 100 timeline. Where have I agendaed? Timeline. And so hopefully it won't be too impactful on your operations, except for that, of course, that weekend of offline. Excuse me, the next agenda item is also really, really quick, but you may have seen a SwanCom from Tara Wood this morning, our UX manager, who is gathering interested parties who would like to participate in the Aspen Discovery pilot. And, I thought I had that open up here. The project pilot is going to be a number of months long, and it may be, somewhat intensive of your time. But the reason I'm bringing it up here is because she has, we have a need to have a couple of cataloging libraries within that testing group, in particular because of the interesting things that that Aspen does with regard to I'm blanking, I'm sorry. Combining records. I feel like I'm not saying that right. But like it looks at records and it matches them based on title and author. And so we've looked at this before, of course, but it will, group all of Harry Potter together and all of the different formats underneath, which has some implications for holds, but it's also just a great sort of discovery kind of service. It seems to work pretty well, but we want to take a really, really close look at that. And we need people in this team who aren't me, who know our mark data really well and know SWAN's particular sticking points within our mark data really well. So that is if you are interested and you have some time, look for that email from Tara this morning. I'm trying to find it in my list of things here. Here it is. Okay. This is the sign up. I'm going to put this into the chat as well.
I think I did, but I
Oh, you
can't
did
tell.
already.
I think, but let me try it again.
I have it.
It's taken a while to come through. Yeah, okay.
Weird. Okay. Yeah. This will lay out, and this isn't a one-person project either. I mean, of course, it would be something that you'd have to probably talk to your directors about and other staff at your libraries, because we would need, some buy-in from a number of people. And we do have interest from some people in this room, in this meeting. And so thank you for, or your colleagues, whoever it was that expressed that interest. But we are going to be picking 5 to 7 libraries from the pool of applicants to participate in this pilot, and it should be pretty interesting. So if you are curious to play with Aspen and be a part of sort of this development and testing process, talk to your colleagues, and I encourage you to look into this. Right. The last bit of me just talking to you is I put this graphic novel and series discussion. We talked about this 2 months ago, and I had come away with some homework. And so the only reason this is on the agenda right now is to say that I need to punt it for another session at least. I haven't had the time that I hope I would have had to really dig into this and start pulling some things out to write up and to share and to get maybe some training in gear. So it's still really, really high on my list. As soon as this SWAN 100 project is done, I would like to turn my personal professional attention to the graphic novel project. So it is still happening, though I don't really have anything concrete to give you today, and I'm sorry about that. Though I do want to share that we've sort of initiated a small type of project that Angela is sort of spearheading for us. Some of you may be aware that, just to step back, that every week Diane on Bib Services will go in and look for new AV releases, particularly movies, and sort of try to get into the SWAN catalog because these things are you know, high demand and often quite messy. And so she'll see what's coming out new and then do the work to catalog and clean up what is there to make sure that everything that is going to be looked at and, you know, borrowed and start collecting holds is in good working order bibliographically. So Angela started doing this for us similarly with a new release kind of resource that just is about books. So we've been sort of looking at popular series and trying to sort of get the jump on them in general, and not just catalog the new things that are coming out and making sure that every you know, that the new catalog records are in order and merged and proper, but taking that opportunity to also step back and look at these series as a whole, and make sure that the series presentation is correct, that the catalog records across those series are in you know, clean and consistent. And so she's been we started doing this as kind of like a pilot test program, and Angela kept really detailed notes on the work she was doing and what it led to, and so it was really kind of cool to see. And I don't have that in front of me right now, I'm sorry, but it seemed like good work to do. So we're going to continue trying to get on top of that, and hopefully it will start to have an impact over time as we start looking at more and more of these series that are still in publication and therefore still really being you know, searched and borrowed. And then also just that we've gotten a lot of, this is sort of part B here, we've gotten a lot of requests. Just starting this graphic novel discussion seems to have like woken people up to examining things and speaking up. So we've been getting sort of increase in requests for cleanup for series and for graphic novels. And so we hope that's been, we've been trying to turn that around as quickly as possible, but it's been a positive experience. And so I just wanted to mention that and say, thanks for those of you who have said things and brought things up, and also we hope it is starting to make a difference. Okay. Any questions on anything I've been babbling about for the past half an hour?
Can I give a big shout of thanks to Woodridge and Glen Ellen for consistently sending series to be cleaned up?
Sure.
So that's,
thanks.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Scott, it's Carrie. I have a question. You had mentioned something back when we first were talking about item type consolidation, something about how things might change in Aspen.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk a little bit more about how Aspen's going to affect what we do as catalogers?
I sort of maybe can, but I'm not exactly ready to yet. But I can give you a couple of little like tiny tastes of things. So like, for example, the item type the item category question that was just a response that to the fact that Aspen gleans both audience data, audience information, and fiction, nonfiction information from bibliographic records, not from item data. And it does it really well. I was sort of concerned about that, like moving to sort of a different like method of this. And I thought maybe we should talk to them about using our item categories instead to maintain that control. But I do like the way it works. And nothing has been, I mean, we haven't done, that's part of the reason we want to get more eyes on this for this pilot as well, to make sure that I'm not going crazy here.
Scott, do you want to
Yes.
pull up Aspen?
Yeah, you know what, I kind of
And
do
kind of,
now.
you know, kind of show some of the things you've noticed, because you've done a lot of the, you know, digging into this stuff. So
Oops.
I think it would be.
What is I wanted to show St.
It should
Charles.
be a CD beta
That?
.catalog.
Oh,
Wait, wait, it is .swanlibraries.net. Is that not working?
it is not.
Um,
The regular one is. I mean, the generic one is.
they might be configuring something.
Yeah,
Right.
they're probably working on it. Oh, I wasn't prepared for this. What do I want to
Sorry.
show?
I added the St. Charles link in the chat. See if that works.
Oh yeah, it really doesn't want to.
Huh.
Okay, that's fine. Right, so let me just do a
What were
search for
some
any
of the
collect.
fun ones we were doing? Scott, do you remember any that you submitted?
Um,
Some of the video stuff
the video stuff.
or audience stuff. We had some good titles we were sending to them for troubleshooting.
Yeah, I'm totally blanking on everything. I wonder if this is fixed. You might be seeing something you don't want to see right now. I want to try it. Come on. This is very, very slow right now. They must be working on something. They have not fixed this yet. Harry Potter. I did some combining of editions, and Harry Potter's primary title became German, and the primary series became, I believe that's also German actually. No, that's Spanish because of this part. So yeah, pretty weird. But this is what we're looking at. Okay, so what I was talking about in terms of facets. Fiction, nonfiction facet, it's you can see it's got more values here. And a lot of stuff is sort of falling into this unknown, which is a little strange and something we sort of have to dig through. But it's got fiction, it's got nonfiction, but it also brings out the more granular fixed field data about novels and essays and speeches and all of that, which is compelling. Even if we didn't want to keep this granularity, we can always condense it back down to the way we had it before. But the fact is that it's taking that information from a different place in the record, and it's going to sort of follow the same logic that we do with the fiction nonfiction facet. Excuse me, which is that if it's a text print type record, or if it's an I type, spoken word type record, that information is available there. And if it's not one of those types of records, it doesn't have that to pull from in the fixed field. But there is also the possibility here of pulling in other subject headings and the like to sort of fill in these gaps for things that are like film and well, mostly film, to be honest. So that's has the potential, if we wanted to go that direction, which again we don't necessarily need to, but to free up an item category, provided that item category wasn't serving too strong of a purpose for in like the reporting aspect and all of that. And the same goes for audience. I believe that these are still pulling from the item category, but they wouldn't necessarily have to. So yeah, there's a lot of options here. It is a platform that was designed to go over any type of bibliographic catalog. So it wasn't designed with Symphony in mind, so it doesn't rely on the quirks of Symphony and the things that Symphony does. It relies on, in large, mostly on marked data, because marked data is the thing that is universal to all 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many ILSs that Aspen's worked with already, but yeah, so that's sort of where that discussion goes. The other thing that we're going to have to talk about, and this is actually the first thing that I think we as a group would have to deal with in moving to Aspen, is format. Their format vocabulary is much more granular than ours, and it also does not rely on our 590. They gave us that option. I said, let's just do it the way you do it and see how that goes. And so you can see here within just this Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets search, we've got video game consoles being called out. Specifically, we have formats here like VHS, we have DVD and Blu-ray. And then there are some things that are a little strange, like we have audio CD and we have music CD. Like, what does that mean? We have software and Windows game. Like, are those separate? What is causing these to be? How does this logic work? Which is something that I've tried my best to dig into, and it's sort of an ongoing project on my table right now, and a conversation that we're sort of having with the folks at Aspen to what we're looking at right now is actually pretty clean. Every now and then you'll do a search and you'll see like, well, this is weird. What does this mean? To sort of, we want to fill in the gaps. Some of our legacy cataloging doesn't work as well because the data is not as good. And that's so when it comes to format, if we were to go the route of Aspen, if we were to go the route of foregoing the 590, which is sort of a beautiful thing that in my opinion, I've said this many times before, we would have to talk about how to make that work for us. And so there will probably be some cleanup necessary on, the little quirks of certain records that we haven't really maybe given a lot of attention to because they didn't have a lot of impact in enterprise that now sort of are more visible within Aspen because they guide this format distinction. Also, then the big question, and this isn't something that I think would affect the cataloging libraries, but when it comes to making precats, with our kind of our brief guidelines, precats actually fit surprisingly well within what Aspen is looking for, but it's not 100% of the time. So we'd have to find those really easy things that we can put into records to make our precats more robust. The one thing that surprised me, not to go on and on about this, but one thing that surprised me is that the way that formats are assigned, for me, the way I think about it is definitely like a fixed field first kind of way, like because those are super standard ways to identify this, that, and the other on the record. And you can look at the record type first to know where you are, and then sort of pare down based on other data. So like, okay, I know I got print materials in my hand, and this thing says it's large print, or this thing says it's Braille, but at least we're in that realm of text. The same thing goes for like spoken word recording. This is either an audiobook or comedy or whatever it is, but at least we know it's I-type. This kind of goes the other way around, and it starts with the marked data in the middle. It relies a lot on 3xx fields, some of which we don't use. It relies on subject headings even, and it relies on descriptive data to an enormous degree, which at first I thought this couldn't possibly work. And I have found some ways that this it gets thwarted by the presence of 006s and 007s in particular, kind of a mess. But it's an interesting way, and it's a way that has a lot of potential to work and not be too confusing, because once you get your head around it, it starts to make sense. It starts to be kind of easy, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm not 100% there yet. So those are the types of things. I'm sorry, that was a long answer, but it was also a really good question. Those are the type of things we would have to start dealing with. And the core, if we do go the Aspen route, it's this group that's going to really start dealing with those things first. So it could be pretty interesting. Anything else that I wanted to pull out? I'm not sure. Right now, there's no genre facet, which is something I would like to work on. Accelerated reader and where is it? Maybe it's not here. The Lexile numbers. Those are I know we have those in our bibliographic data. These are actually being sourced from directly from the source. I don't think these come from our bibliographic data. So did that sort of answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted kind of an overview to know what to expect.
Yeah, okay. I hope that was overview
And
enough.
that was a good introduction, Scott, of why we want some cataloging libraries to be part of the early pilot.
Exactly, yeah. because you're gonna stare. I've been staring at this for what, like 6 months now. I've stopped seeing things. I'm sure I've stopped seeing things that I should be seeing, and so it would be good to have some more catalog experts, mark experts, getting their eyes on this thing. So yeah, what do I want to go back to? I want to go back to here. Okay. So here's where I have a question for you guys. So we did a report. I did a report a few weeks ago. I pulled serial call numbers out of our system entirely. I pulled all of them because I really wanted to get like a top-down view of the inconsistent analytics, basically, that muck up enterprise, that would inevitably muck up Aspen and make hold placement difficult. And so we identified, I just poured through this report and just pulled out things that were wrong. And we also sort of started identifying where the problems were coming from. And it turns out that's pretty broad. It's sort of, everybody's got their hands in the serial error pie. Not that I think that there's any bad faith or anything going on. It's just that I think there's some sort of maybe re-education that needs to be going on, or just sort of drawing attention to these things. So we decided to, and some of you may have already heard from us, some of you may have not. We are doing a sort of 3 sessions. Starting tomorrow is the first, the Friday after, and then the Friday after that. Just sort of a look at serial call numbers, a look at our documentation, and a look at how serial control generates those call numbers as well, just to sort of get people on the same page and maybe start pushing for more consistency in call number analytics. So we are doing it in shifts. So we've reached out to 25 libraries, I believe. Claudia, is that correct?
30.
Oh, 30 at now. Okay, great. As sort of a first run, because we have 3 sessions set up, and we wanted to keep these relatively small, so that people could really speak up and ask questions and make it more like a conversation than just talking at somebody. Though we are also going to record them if for those who can't make it, or we're trying to make special arrangements for those who also can't make it. But so that's pretty. I'm looking forward to it, and so that's in this process we've sort of gone back to our serials documentation, our call number documentation, to say, well, is there anything else we can do to simplify this process? And based on the errors that I was seeing, I mean, there's a couple suggestions we have when it comes to using serial control and settings within serial control, and that's fine. That's one thing. Beyond that, there was only one thing that was obvious to me that was consistently causing issues. And I kind of wanted to just run it by you. And I thought I had it up. So, oh wait, that's not what I want. Serials. And I'm going to go into the serial. I can't click on this thing. Okay. The list of abbreviations for constructing dates. This is what I want to talk to you about. So we have some good ones here. Where is it? Weekly date range right here. There are a couple of libraries, not libraries, I'm sorry. There are a couple of titles. The Economist, I think New York Magazine, actually those are the 2 that I saw the most of, that have, instead of just giving a date, they give a range of dates. So for example, this April 14th to 20th is a 7-day span that represents their April 14th issue. They just happen to style it with the range on here, April 14th to 20th. These 2 things here, weekly, daily, single date, weekly date range, in all the examples that I could see, were essentially the same thing. But these ranges are kind of a nightmare, especially because serial control doesn't really generate things that way. You can't really tell it to do that. What it's going to do for a weekly title that just happens to be styled this way is generate predictions in this style up here, April 14th plain. So I was thinking we could just sort of maybe do away with the weekly date range in 2021 And I want to know from you if that sounds feasible or if there is a reason that that would be a bad idea. Anybody have any thoughts?
Seems
Everybody's-
reasonable to me.
Everybody,
Sorry? Everybody's able to speak up. I just checked. Everybody is, oh, except you, Anne Marie, I'm sorry.
I don't think it's a problem. Need to know, excuse me, or, you know, send out the information that on that particular title, we know it gives a date range, but use the first date.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to call out specific titles for sure if we were to communicate this, and put some notes in some bib
Yeah.
records as well.
Yes, some people will be able to translate that, hey, if it's a date range, just use the first date, whereas others are maybe a little confused by that. So I think if you spell out, you know, or at least give a specific example, then people who don't do it on a regular basis or in a smaller library, you know, would be able to understand what we're asking.
Yeah, an example. That's actually a good idea. Maybe we can even find a cover image and just lay it all out right here on the support site as well. Actually, let me write that down.
Yeah, and then Scott, it's a nitpicky thing. I don't know, it could be something with the way that the website works, but I'm sure you have these examples in a table in columns. If you could expand those columns so that the chronology format and the example are all on one line, the way that it would appear in the bib or in the item record, I think will help people. Because having multiple lines like that, when you're just glancing, it's
pretty tough.
a nitpicky thing. Sorry, it's a nitpicky thing.
No, it's fair. There's not a ton of real estate here when it comes to width, but I'm sure I can do something. I also wrote this before I knew how to do anything within Drupal, and I can probably take a stab at it now that it's been a couple of years. It might have to fall out of the table format too if we wanted to. I can also talk. I think that's definitely a good idea. Columns to. Okay. Yeah, because other than that, other than this date range thing, I wasn't identifying anything that was particularly difficult that we could sacrifice. The one thing that we did sort of chat about was the double issue problems. Not problems, but this formatting with the slash. To me, the fact that something is a double issue is worth recording. Just in terms of from a collection standpoint, also from a patron standpoint, so it doesn't look like things are missing. But there was sort of a thought passed around, and I want to propose it to you as well, that if two issues are combined into one, we still just stick with that first date and do away with the second date. So this would also read April 14th, 2018. But the other sort of problem with that, on the other hand, I'm talking myself out of this as I'm sorry, I shouldn't be influencing you, but I'm going to do it anyway, is that like actual bi-monthly titles that are always, double months are going to always be presented like that. There's that distinction between something that comes like that and something that is actually a combined issue. The same with the bi-weekly magazines versus a double issue. Is that something that puts a wrench in the gears? I guess it could put a wrench in the gears either way. We'd have to be consistent.
Because then also that bi-weekly, if we leave it, you're also going to need an example of when it crosses months.
Yeah. Oh, I do.
28th to May. What is that supposed to look like?
Yeah, I will do that.
And it's like I don't do the magazines on any type of regular basis, so I don't know how often that would happen.
Often enough that it needs to be addressed. Yeah, for sure. That's one of the things that I saw a lot of. It was a lot of the errors were around these hyphen ones and these slash call numbers, and so
Yeah,
yeah,
the
maybe
other one is the double issues that span 2 years, December 31st and
that
2020 to January, whatever, 21.
exactly. Let me write that down too. When bi-weeks cross months or when bi-monthlies cross years. I'll know what that means. Excuse me a second. I have to mute for a second. Sorry, tickle in my throat.
Yeah, because I know I recall, I should say, there being a couple of magazines that would combine the end of the year and the first of the year. Because I always ask, well, when do we get rid of this December one? Because it also goes into January.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's
And
like, do we, go by the first date or by the second date?
yeah, in terms of the way the call number is constructed, excuse me, not even the call number, the way that that's presented, especially the ones that go from one year to the next, will affect the shelving key on that too a lot, which I guess is something we need to consider. But I think what I have in my head will work. So I will give examples. We will put examples of those on the support site. We'll also make sure examples of those exist in the training that we're doing. The other issue that we've sort of looked at, there is a method within serial control to combine issues. If you get one issue and you discover, oh, I didn't know this is a double issue, it actually takes the place of both. The serial control module will do this construction for you if you have the settings right. I don't think everybody does, so we're going to be pushing for how to get that set up properly. But also that what you were just talking about, when something spans 2 months, serial control, it doesn't know how to deal with it. It does something really ugly and very confusing. So it's I don't know. It's just something that we noticed and we have to sort of deal with. So it's we're sort of learning some of the quirks of this along the way as well. But I'm hoping that this is a good thing for us to be doing and spending our time on it. I feel like that this is a problem that's been sitting for a very, very long time, and I don't know what happened in the past month, but we all started to get sort of laser focused on it. Oh, I do know what happened. We were training the new 19 libraries, is what we were, not 19, the 19, the SWAN 100 libraries, and it kept coming up. That's why we're sort of focused on this. I also want to ask you if there's just anything else related to serial call numbers, or really kind of multi-volume call numbers in general, anything with an analytic that you'd especially want to voice or make sure that we touched on or documented better. Okay, good. So hopefully once these trainings get underway, we will start to see some pretty good changes. I'm going to announce this doing away with, I can't speak the sentence, this weekly date range thing tomorrow in an email, a SwanCom rather, but it'll be one of those things that we just need to get effective at a specific date, and I don't want everyone to have to go back if they've made predictions and done all things in serial control to have to worry about it for the rest of the year. So we'll say January 1st on that, which hopefully is a okay way to do it. Oh,
I think specify that anything beginning January 21, because we're going to start receiving the January issues if we haven't already received some.
oh, you're right. That is what I meant. The January issues. You're right.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to word that properly. And SWAN webinar, one of my esteemed colleagues said, refresh the page. The column widths are fixed. So this is now what this page looks like. And so thank you for that suggestion. It looks like probably Dawn was able to get that fixed.
Yeah, it's a lot more readable.
Yeah, totally. So thanks for that. Right. And so hopefully we'll see some of you tomorrow. I forget Claudia has the list of who's on what training, but I think we may be talking to some of you tomorrow about this. Right. So the last sort of large scale topic that I really wanted your input on was to sort of finish up this conversation we started about MARC Online records last month and Library of Thing records last month. So I took a stab at sort of a framework for rethinking these records. And let me refresh this. Okay, so I wasn't going to publish this on the support site, but I wanted you all to be able to just have it open on your screens if you were curious about it. So it's in the chat, the link to this page. Not that you don't necessarily need to have it open while I do, but it's there for you. What I put together here, and I kind of just want to go through this document really quickly, is the way that I think we should start thinking about Library of Things materials, local materials like your yearbooks and your GovDocs, and MARC Online records in general. And so the issues that we were dealing with before were that, A, we wanted to encourage the combining of records a little more to A, clean up our catalog, B, help so catalogers aren't redoing work that's already been done for the sake of making a record that's unique to their library when it's not really necessary to do. And B, like how to get, if we are going to share these records, how to determine whether something should get an OCLC record versus a MARC Online record, and really what a MARC Online record is. So most of this is going to seem like old hat. I don't think this is terribly revolutionary, but I did expand our kind of the wording of it all. So I'm calling a MARC Online record a brief record that you can create in any of the following situations. Not that these are the only situations, but if a full OCLC record is not necessary for the item or impossible to create, which kind of covers the area of like foreign language materials that maybe are in like Arabic or Georgian, or those languages that are just impossible for us to really get good cataloging built for. Or if you wish to have a record that is unique to your library, of course, as always. Some examples of what they're good for, collective records like this. So one of the concerns that came up at a cataloging meeting a long time ago when we first started talking about this was, well, we just put all our hotspots on one record. We don't want to have a million records for each different model of hotspot. That's not something that I wanted to make anybody sacrifice. So that's kind of what this is about, collective records for things like collections like that. Records for items that'll never circulate via ILL. There's just some things that just will never, there are a lot of things in fact that never will go out. And records for local items that don't really warrant inclusion in OCLC for whatever reason, other reason, archival materials, genealogy collections, school yearbooks, and it's really not up to any one person to make that choice, but that choice is something that we need to account for. So I said that here you may choose for yourself whether these types of materials will benefit from an OCLC record, and this applies whether you're a catalog library or not. I said SWAN Bibliographic Services can always create an OCLC record if you want something represented on OCLC. Does that sound? I mean, that's pretty much where we were with these before. Does that seem reasonable? Anybody say no? If nobody says no, okay, good. So some characteristics, mostly that they're brief, but this is where I highlighted that MARC Online Circe Dynix policy that I said I was creating last time we met. That has been fully created. So the MARC Online policy, and let me show you my screen here. Oh, I was playing with serials. The MARC Online policy is pretty similar to the MARC policy. What was I looking at before? Yes, this is where I was. Okay, so this is a cake pan record. The fixed field up here, rec status C, rec type A, it's all based on, of course, print materials, as our default is rec type A. So is MARC Online. So if you were to switch to the MARC Online record policy, you see nothing happens to the record. And also all of the the mark fields here need to be specifically defined. Sometimes you come across that problem, especially with those new RDA fields, where you would try to add something and it said you can't edit this field. It's just because it doesn't exist. So we've had to define those at the database level. Everything that is defined for mark is defined for mark online. So anything that you would presumably put on a book record will be able to be put on here. So really, the change is minimal. So it is ready to go. But I haven't applied it to anything yet, except for this record, of course. These save automatically. So that is something we'll do over time. What I did sort of lay out here is that it would be good if we could all sort of start using this mark online policy when we're making these types of records for ourselves. But I also emphasized later on that new mark online records should retain that 977 precat, because I imagine this is going to be a kind of a hard sell. People are sort of, as this gets sort of disseminated and learned, that'll be great, but I don't think it's going to happen right away. So if mark online records stay as precats, we'll make that change in SWAN Central on our own when we come to look at them. But this is going to be great because once this mark online policy is then disseminated to a satisfactory degree, you'll be able to, if you want to, use it to filter reports. If you don't want those types of records, and it's like a cleanup project, for example, that you want to do in Mark, I'm going to be able to filter them from our reports, and I'm going to be able to filter them from our extracts for Marchive. And so it's just about removing kind of that bloat, which is really nice. And this is the part that's kind of different and new. And this is the concept of sharing Mark online records. This is basically the reason why we might want to do this. We encourage the use of shared records when A, you're circulating materials as received from a manufacturer, which is just to sort of emphasize that we are trying to put things out there without a lot of variation. I mean, that's how we guarantee that we're all circulating the same thing. If you tear a box of things apart or add to it, it's probably not going to want to be a shared record anymore. And the record is unique to a particular model or edition. I didn't think that we would want to have shared, and this is a question I have for you, but I was assuming we wouldn't want to have shared records for things like all of your hotspots or all of your cake pans, but an argument could actually be made the other way. And I wanted to hear whether you thought that was, well, if you had a thought on that at all. Do you think like a SWAN hotspots record would be usable or tenable?
I just for us, when we think about for our own library combining records and things like that, if it's more of a issue of service rather than an actual item that's being circulated, like the hotspots, we've always sort of the ideology, it's not that the device is circulating, it's that the service is circulating. And so it doesn't matter which hotspot somebody gets because it's the same level of service. And I don't think that, I think hotspots is kind of a bad example to start with because I think we all have our own like unique way of doing those libraries that circulate them. So I wouldn't think that a centralized SWAN hotspot record would be appropriate. I think that hotspots would be fine if we all kind of kept our own. But if we have something like the Dell Inspiron 5000 laptop, which I feel like, or I don't even know if it's 5, you know what I mean? The one that's kind of relatively cheap, and it seems like there's like 8 of us that are circulating the same thing, and we all kind of like, the accompanying material, like some maybe have a bag and some maybe don't, like that sort of thing. I think that those records could potentially benefit, if anything, just because then we in the back end wouldn't see so much, like you say, bloat, like so many duplicate records.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's something that like if a couple libraries decide amongst themselves that something like a cake pan or a umbrella, or I can't think of anything sort of universal like that. Like if a couple of them decide together, hey, we want to band together and have one sort of centralized SWAN umbrella, and you attach to it, that's of your own prerogative. But you know, like, am I making any sense? I feel like now I'm just sort of talking. But
no, I hear you. I think that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that is sort of why I emphasize the model thing here. But yeah, maybe we should, I mean, really the emphasis, this is an encouragement. And this actually should be probably reworded. But this is, at the end of the day, it is about individual library choice. I mean, maybe I should emphasize that a little harder.
Because I
I
think
also,
too, oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
I just in thinking about record variations, I think when we also like if we really want this to serve, you know, to sort of do what we want it to do, which is make navigating the catalog a little bit easier, I think you want to have that give and take, because we don't want to have a situation where it's like a switch console and some people have the gray version and some people have the yellow, no, the yellow version, and some people have that, and we have 3 different records for that. I think that level of granularity, like, you know, then we lose some of the benefit of this, if that makes any sense. So like, I think that in reading your instructions, I think they're really great, and that they give us that little bit of breathing room by also providing a nice structure of, if you want to combine stuff, we could, and if we want, we can keep on keeping on, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's not something I really considered, was those variations in specifications that don't have an impactful difference, like a color of something. It might make a difference when you're buying the thing, but if you're borrowing it from a library, probably not. Consider it. So it's definitely something we can sort of bring out of here too, just to sort of give some guidance in that arena. I did call out things that are obviously library. I don't think this would even be an issue, but things that libraries make themselves or preload themselves. I mean, you want to have control of those contents notes and the contents, and be able to change them to swap stuff out. So I mean, those are, I think, always going to be on their own. This change to atom components, I think you touched on this a second ago, and I think maybe this should be a little more emphasis on like necessary components. Whereas if you want to put your laptop into a bag, of course, that's sort of not a material change. So that's definitely something to kind of consider as well. Right. And so the bit I have here about identifying unique versus shared records, I feel like we should just rely on the same practice before, is like if there's a library name within that 245, then it's been claimed. Otherwise, not. I mean, that seems kind of simple, but you want to be able to do that quickly anyway. So that's how I listed it here. I know we've also always been all about the 3-letter codes as sort of the identifier at the beginning of our Mark Online 245s. For records we've imported, we haven't always had that. Glen Ellyn Mobile Hotspot is an example. This came through in 2018, but I don't think that I love the 3-letter codes the more I think about them, especially because they are patron facing. So I deliberately took out the language that asked for them. I don't know if there's any objection to that. No? Okay. Yeah, and I was specific then about using proper titles as found on records for you don't use descriptive titles if you want something to be shared, because otherwise, in that case, you're going to get it's going to get kind of too wishy-washy.
Yeah, Scott, I think the reason that we included the library code was, I think we were working basically on the assumption that it's like patrons weren't going to find it in the catalog, that it was really more for staff use.
Yeah, these are cropping up. Like I see them fairly often. I see them a lot in Aspen even too. And so it might be that was the case at one point, or but I do see them quite often. Although I'm also in the recesses of our catalog a lot, in a way that probably a lot of our patrons aren't. But
I really like having the name spelled out, because that way they can find all the Batavia cake pans or whatever unique thing that's Batavia, because BLD means nothing to a patron. I like it spelled out.
Yeah, good. Okay.
And then I think if that's what everyone's preference is, it should be put in there going forward. The library name should be spelled out. You don't have to add public library, but at least have your town.
So you're suggesting we
name
do
of
make
the
it
library.
consistent.
Yes.
So yeah, I think we need to specify which way we should do it instead of doing it separate ways.
Okay. I don't have an objection to that. I considered it and then backed off because I didn't, but if I'm hearing that, I'm definitely about it. Let me word this in my notes really quickly.
Because I have a sneaking suspicion that formal titles with the library catalogers are the only one who's searching for it that way.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So, you know, if it's going to make it clearer in the patron catalog to have it spelled out, then that's what we should recommend.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Also, when we have records like this, we generally have, DGS in the 245, but we do 246s that say, Downers Grove and such. And so it's just a question of swapping those so that the patron visible one is the full name, but you can still have your code in a different title so that if your staff is used to searching for it that way, it'll still show up.
That's an excellent point. And I can probably even spell that out in the documentation. Okay. Who said that, by the way? Who spoke last?
Sorry, it was Nora.
Oh, hi, Nora. Okay, cool. Yes, right. And then this just means keep the pre-cat 977 on there, which we ask everyone to do, non-cataloging libraries to do. And then I have a bit about standard catalog records. It felt like a weird thing to have a heading about, but it's just sort of more about how that decision is made. If we do see mark online records, and this is already the case, I've never really written it out before, but SWAN staff, when they're going through pre-cats, every now and then they'll come across the record that they'll make that choice of like, this doesn't warrant an OCLC record. Sometimes they'll reach out to the library to find out, but sometimes it's pretty clear. And so they will just sort of spruce it up and call it a day without the OCLC overlay. So this sort of spells that out. And it also spells out the fact that standard records will go to Marchive, standard records will go to holdings processing, Mark Online records from now on. I haven't made this change yet, but once we get that Mark Online status going, we will not be sending those out anymore. They weren't doing anything anyhow. They were just going out and being left alone. So, it won't be a difference that anybody will notice. And oh, right, I put in a little call. If you really want to make sure that a record gets an OCLC overlay, you can throw a note in there, a local note in there. We'll see that, and we'll make sure to do that job. And then just laying out all records with OCLC numbers and full cataloging will be shared, will be like thought of as shared records, because it is an OCLC record, and that's sort of the whole spirit of the thing in the first place, whereas no library unique records will receive OCLC overlay, because that's just the same thing. It's probably just not worth doing. But this sentence right here also reduces duplicate OCLC numbers in our catalog, which we don't really want when we can avoid it. So I have some changes from you guys to make, but I feel like I have a handle on those changes, and I'm just going to sort of update this and send it out anyway, unless you think this needs more work other than what we've talked about today.
Scott, I have a little concern about your note, please provide OCLC overlay, because I think some libraries are going to see that and they're going to put that in every single pre-cat that they create.
Oh, that is actually probably a really good point. Huh,
so
okay.
basically my recommendation is eliminate that.
Okay. And just leave it and just with this.
Yeah.
Okay. I can definitely do that. I think you actually raise a really good point.
You know, if you have a library who has a lot of unique things, I think that's going to be a conversation, so you'll finally get a handle on what they want overlaid and what they don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they specify themselves when they create the pre-cat to make it online, you know, mark online, so that you guys know that those don't need an OCLC record.
Yeah, this has also never been a problem in the past, so I don't think we need a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Right, okay. Yeah, I could do that easy.
Hey, this is Diane. I wondered
Hi,
if
Diane.
also a place in here might be to put it the 590s and what the appropriate 590s for things are, because sometimes people will put a kit when it is a toys and games, and then we change it to toys and games because it's an OCLC thing and other people can attach to it, and then they send in ticket gelling that we've changed all their things. So they have to use the appropriate 590.
My brain went there when I was writing this, the draft of this, and then my brain ran away from it because I was afraid of like breaching that topic. I think we should.
Oh.
I think you're right. I don't know if I think maybe we should sit down and like sort some of that out, especially because the kit one I know is a big one. But I don't know like off the top of my head to write that out on my own. Maybe we can.
Okay, and I think like a puzzles and games or toys and games is something again that comes standard in the box. Anyone can circulate it, but if they open it, change it, put multiple things together, then it becomes a kit.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can put our heads together tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah, Scott, I think if you just use basically you have to use the same cataloging standards. You're not doing, you know, basically full mark RDA is not expected, but you still have to follow the same guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you won't be duplicating the cataloging work here in the mark online. If you, you know, just say refer to, you know, wherever we talk about the 590s of which to choose, then they've been told what they're supposed to do.
That's true. Maybe we can add to the 590 documentation specifically and then just link to it. That is a thought. I have somewhere in here talk of what you're saying, that although they're not held to you know, full cataloging standards, there is. I don't know where that is, but I'm going to flesh that out a little bit. Okay, so we're going to do a 590 link and update of documentation to reflect problems with kits, puzzles, etc. Okay. I may not have that officially finished by tomorrow, but I think we can put our heads together and get that done over the weekend. I mean, or maybe Monday or Tuesday as like a little supplement to this. I still think I want to get this out before then. Okay. Do you think people will take to it? I know that there are some shared records floating around there already. I mean, things have been sort of slowly going this direction anyway.
To an extent, some of it will be just a change in mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Me as an example. Because I'm, you know, I'm no big secret there. When we do equipment, it's always because of the way that we package it and what we include or don't include, just used to creating our own. Because I know next week I'm going to be working on Chromebooks. So I'll have to remember to go and look and see what other people have to see whether or not we can attach, because then my other hesitation on attaching some things, like for us, the Chromebooks, it has to be a Tinley Park card holder. And do we really want the whole world to see that we have these and they come and get to us thinking that they can check it out if it's on shelf to find out, no, it's Tinley card holders only.
Mm.
So yeah, so some of it's just going to be a change in mindset.
Okay. Yeah, that is a tough choice when it comes to the
Yeah,
that circulation aspect. And if you want to have
Yeah.
that note in there.
right. And it's like, if, cake pans, probably wouldn't care. I hope to God we never have cake pans. I see a shared record. It's like, 2 or 3 libraries bought the same Batman cake pan.
Mm.
Why reinvent the wheel? Whereas with some of the technology, considering the cost and what you may or may not load on it, because we're also going to be circulating some switches. And it's my understanding we actually purchase downloads for them. So if we want the contents, then we can't use a shared record.
Right. Yeah.
So that's more, nitty gritty of how my mind goes to.
Mm-hmm. The benefit of this is that you can't really do it wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. So this will be a lovely little SwanCom to talk about. I'm sure we'll get some questions back. But I appreciate your help on this. And I feel good.
Scott, it's Colleen. I'm just wondering, should we start changing our brief records to the Smart Online, or is this something that we could submit a ticket that could be done as a batch, or?
We can definitely, I wasn't intending to go back and do anybody's work for them. I didn't want to make assumptions, but we'll be happy to do that for you if you want us to to help you with some cleanup. Also, but in my mind, it's going to be sort of a here on out thing, unless we hear from you. You know what I mean?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I expect a lot of them from Tinley Park will be corrected whenever I get to that file of records that you sent me that I haven't opened.
Okay, fair.
Or that I opened once and did 6 records on.
That's all right.
Yeah, because I know a lot of them were yearbooks and whatnot, and I have to decide what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just going to be great to one day be able to run a report like that and not have all those yearbooks show up, and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, feels good to me.
Hey, in January, I'm back to 5 days a week. I can start to tackle stuff then.
Oh, good. That should be exciting. Okay, we can do one of two things. It is 10 to 3. We can take a 10 to 15-minute break and then come back, but there is not too much left. This is all going to be quick. We can also plow through and be done. Thoughts?
Be done.
Okay.
Be done. Yeah, all through.
So more email that I'm going to be sending is about 2021 cataloging advisory. I don't know if you recall, but when we got all your names on a list, I sort of randomly doled out 1 year or 2 year terms, just so we could have some, ability to churn and get new blood in if new blood is indeed interested. So about half of you are, and I will email you personally if you are on this list, due to either reapply or say, well, this has been fun, but I'm going to, bow out for a while. I'm going to put out a call tomorrow or Monday for, anybody interested in joining cataloging advisory, and we'll see who is interested. I just want to say how I'm going to do this. So we're going to give people 2 weeks to respond by the 20th, and on the 23rd, we'll announce the new makeup of the group. So basically, if you do get an email from me, and again you will, and you are interested in staying on, just let me know. We're going to favor new blood over old blood, but I also don't know that what kind of demand we're going to get. So it's very possible that we'll be able to turn around and just say, yeah, stick around. And so also if you are you are already in the group for 2021, and that's the other half of you, and you're saying, listen, this is just, you feel free to bow out as well without guilt. I won't take it personally. So we'll have a new group by 2023. The new, excuse me, by 11/23rd, 11/20. What am I trying to say? November 23rd. And the first meeting is in January. All of the meetings for 2021 are on L2, the new L2, with a single, so we won't have this issue again. They're on GoToMeeting, and there's a single login link for them. It's like a consistent link now. Every month you'll see it. If you go on L2, it's got text instead of numbers. It says cataloging advisory. It's very nice. And so you'll all be able to have your own identities, and we're just keeping the same schedule. We're keeping the same time of day. So it'll be first Thursdays, 1:30 every other month on the odd months of 2021. So I don't know if there's any questions about that, but I will spell it out in an email too. Cool. Short topics again, and these are all things that I kind of aren't not totally ready to touch on, but just wanted to sort of bring up. We had another case of a pirated DVD being circulated. It was Stranger Things season 3. It happened this week, and this has been happening pretty consistently. People are buying bootleg copies of DVDs online from very convincing Amazon. I think they're all from Amazon listings. It's not totally 100% a cataloging issue, but it does come through the catalog. It comes through bib services because that's where they live. We do have a sort of process in place to reach out to the libraries that are circulating these things to let them know. Most of them are perfectly okay saying, oh, wow, okay, we will pull this from circulation, and then we'll cancel the holds and get the thing out of the system. But we want to sort of start educating on this a little bit. So we're looking into getting some documentation together, and we're looking into maybe a little, I don't know, video or something. I'm not totally sure what direction we'll go with it. But I just wanted to bring it up that this is something we're dealing with. I don't know if any of you have seen that before or possibly heard from us about it before. It's hard to police.
How are you identifying that they are pirated?
Basically, internet searches like the Stranger Things thing. We just looked up online that this thing wasn't,
Okay.
Released. Sometimes you can tell the packaging is a little off. What happened with this one was one of the UPCs that was on it actually was a UPC for a different TV show entirely. They had.
Yeah, it was for Simpsons season 14. Yeah.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, but it is hard sometimes. So I know we don't catch all of them, but we do rely on reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we've gotten a few. It looks like it's Amazon Print on Demand for some either movies or TV series. So I was just curious.
Mm-hmm. And there are tactics. So to like identify, and that's what we kind of want to put together as sort of a guide to how to identify these things on site and avoid them if possible. These people are getting better. So.
Yeah, I put a link in the chat for a DVD release dates, very reliable website. So it's always nice to talk to selectors, maybe to check for DVD release dates, especially these very popular TV shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is more of a reminder thing, and I think this may become an email, from one of Claudia's regular little newsletters, but the 007 tag for accompanying materials. How, I don't know, I kind of waffle on this thing. Like, how important is it to have this 007 in there? It seems to be missing a lot of the time. I mean, one of the situations we see it in is, Blu-ray DVD combo packs, of course, technically, warrant an 007 for each disc in there because they're slightly different. The 007 for, when a DVD accompanies a print book and all of that. Sometimes they're not there. We want to, just for the sake of completion, solid cataloging, have it there. It doesn't have too much of an impact, and in fact, it's actually messing up Aspen a little bit with its format format facet, which again we're talking about them with. Is this something you've noticed or have an opinion on either way? Missing these records, and if they're missing, do you put them in or do you just let it slide?
If I find it in OCLC, I add it.
You do?
Yeah, because, you know, if it's two different types of discs, I don't necessarily do accompanied material. Like if there's a booklet, because half the time we don't circulate the booklet. But it's like there is two formats in there, one Blu-ray, one DVD or CD. I make sure that there are 007s in there.
That's good. I mean, I want to emphasize it, but I don't want to like beat a horse that people aren't interested in me beating, I guess is the weird way to put it. So I just wanted to check in if there was any objection to me following up on this a little more and having Claudia follow up on it a little more in her evaluation. So good. Yeah. Okay. We'll keep emphasizing it, and that's great. That's why this is a short topic. I just wanted a quick question. 3xx fields, I wrote in here subfield B. We just tend to see a lot of 3xx field, not a lot, but some 3xx fields that are missing that subfield B, which doesn't seem like the most important thing, but I think it's best to have it in there. So we are going to sort of start following up with that. You know, I carried this over from last month, and I thought it was more of an interesting topic, but that's what I'm going to say. We want to just make sure that B is in there. So we're going to probably start.
You mean like the RDA ones, right?
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Somebody said something and
I
cut
heard
off.
RDA.
Yeah.
3XX, like 336, 337.
Yes.
The RDA
ones? Exactly those.
Yeah, if you're using OCLC, you can install a macro.
Really?
That will automatically put it in. I'm trying to catch those as I bring them in. I don't know that my staff always would catch it because technically it's not wrong.
Yeah, technically it's not. I just want to make sure that it's there for like anything that might rely on looking for it, which might include like again, I keep bringing it up, but that Aspen format facet looks at the whole 3xx fields. And so we do want to push. I'm curious, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but would you send me that macro or how to install that macro?
Okay, I'll look.
Thanks.
It's been time since I've had it, but I will look.
Okay.
Yeah, I use it constantly.
Isn't just like the constant data or whatever it's called?
No, well, I have it programmed that is like, for me, I did the shortcut of, oh, I got to bring it up. I think my shortcut is like Control-3.
I have also,
yeah.
I was going to say, you can also set it up as a text string, and I find those so much easier to manipulate than macros if anybody can't
Yeah, the
get
only
their
reason
macro to work.
Yeah, the only reason I did it as a macro is because, I don't know, someone somewhere recommended it.
Yeah, and I mean, it works just as well, but I find that, I don't know, just completely personal. And if you want an alternative to macros, you can just set up text strings and they have control keys, or you can set it. I find it so much easier. I'm just plugging something.
And Julie has beautiful text strings. I'm sure she'd share with you.
Really?
Right, Julie?
Yeah, I could if you want. They run on forever. I don't know. Macros, I never got them to work very well.
Yeah, I have text strings and I have constant data too, and I'm happy to share the constant data if somebody wants.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, it's a Control-3. I'll have to find the directions.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no worry. I didn't mean to put pressure on you. I'm just curious. Oh, excuse me. Wonderbook standards is just here because I still haven't done it, but I'm gonna write up some Wonderbook standards and run them by you next time we're around. We've had a couple questions about it, so just so people have a resource to look at for how to deal with that particular format. Not a huge deal. And the last thing here, this has been on my list for like 2 years. I found it on a, well, kind of an old list of things that I wanted to, that I've been asked about. I have had requests for the treatment that we give to the 4 big Illinois book awards, the Monarch Blue Stem, Abraham Lincoln, and the other one, Rebecca Caudle, to include the Read for a Lifetime Award and the Soon to Be Famous Award, which are neither of which I'm terribly familiar with. Is this, I don't know anything about them, so I don't know if how widely they're used or if this is something that would be of interest to you, to give them those 690 searchable subjects.
My librarians would be interested because
sorry.
my library would be interested.
Okay.
The soon to be famous, I don't think we've done anything with, but we do have labels for Read for a Lifetime.
You actually label things. Okay.
Yeah.
My library, one of our people was actually part of creating Soon to Be Famous. So we did a bunch on it front end, and I'm sure we'd be happy to have that option.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's, and these are, does anybody know when these come out?
Soon to Be Famous. Soon to Be Famous, they ask for submissions in like March to May or something like that. And I think they are announced by August. I don't have that in front of me though. They have a website.
Okay. Yeah, if these are things that our libraries are using, especially if libraries are involved with them, or our staff are involved with them, that's, I think, definitely something worth emphasizing. And I don't think this will take us a lot of time to do. So why don't I just say that we're going to go ahead and start populating these. Maybe we'll do last year's to get started, see how extensive it is, and then as they come out, we will continue doing that. I feel good
I
saying
think one
that.
of the questions we had about the Read for a Lifetime was there was the title like Little Women and there's 100 records. Do we have to go in and put a 690 Read for a Lifetime on every single one or the latest 10?
You don't, I could. Yeah, that's definitely something maybe I could automate a little. If we could, I could probably search a list of title control numbers and just throw it in there that way. Yeah, thank you for reminding, because I do remember now that you had mentioned that, or somebody had mentioned that. Okay. So that is the bulk of it. Oh, right. No, one last thing. Sorry. I had Carrie again requested, and this is something that I know you brought up a long time ago, and I'm sorry we never moved on it, but the idea of bringing in the 040 as a column in the SmartPort search results, so you can see the source of a record without having to dive in and actually look at the mark itself, which can help you identify DLC records and just sort of better records in general. So I am going to go ahead and do that, because you're not the only person who's asked for it. But you did email me about it, and I just wanted to make sure you knew that I heard you. And I'm sorry it hasn't happened yet, but we have a talk with our consultant next Friday, or is it tomorrow? One of the two, and I'm gonna find out from her how to make that happen.
It's next Friday.
It is next Friday. Okay, so it might be a week away, but yeah, I'll get that in there.
Can you say again what that specifically was? I had bringing in 040 as a column.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, in the search results on SmartPort specifically, the 040 will be alongside I think it shows what, the 245 and the OCLC number. Without looking at it, I think that's it, right? And
I
so
know it's title. It used to be just a column to the right of a title, and it was just nice because you could pick out the DLC records, the non-English records, and not have to click through every record.
Right, yeah, the languages in there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, SmartPort users will have one extra thing to look at.
Have you resolved the OCLC gateway issue?
No, that's something that was with IT. I'm not really sure where that went. And I was thinking about that earlier today, and so I do want to sort of revisit that again, because I do not know.
Yeah, because I know my IT is looking to build a new server for my staff, because for some reason they're on thin clients. One staff member can use it and the other two can't. So, yeah, it's very strange. But I'm supposed to be getting a new laptop, and so he's talking about setting up a new server. So I have 2 more staff members that are going to use the gateway.
Okay. Yeah. I will. Let me make a note of myself to ask about that. So it's in here. Security concerns. Yeah, it wasn't that it was broken or anything. It's that there's some sort of security concern with it that is preventing us from wanting to move forward on it. So I will find out for you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if they would have a problem because we haven't been able to get them to use it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Access with CLC, so yeah.
Alrighty. Yeah, so that's it for my agenda. Is there anything else that anybody wanted to talk about today?
It's Carrie. I've got something I just want to ask. I've been finding records with the fast headings still in them, brand new records. And didn't you have something that was running to
Yes, and
rip those out? Is it not working or?
It's not working. Sorry, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, it's sort of stopped. I'm not really sure what happened, and I haven't had the time to sit down and diagnose it. But it's on my list.
Okay,
Yeah, and
I was
so
just curious and I thought it helps if people know that, then maybe they could take them out since your program's not working.
Right, it kind of snuck up on me. It's sort of I can go back. I mean, I can fix everything once it gets working again. So you don't have to do any extra work. I don't want to have anybody, go out of their way to change what they do just because of this dumb little script that isn't running. So once I get to the bottom of it, I will go back and sort of retroactively remove all of those. In fact, the perfect time to do that is going to be when we have the reindexing for the new the SWAN 100. So yeah, maybe that's the time to depend on that happening, because I'm going to have to do that to their records anyway.
Also,
So
that 263 date is showing.
yeah, that was part of the same script.
Mm-hmm.
It did both. Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. Anything else? All right. Well, then I'm about ready to adjourn. What did we do? We did this in an hour and a half plus 10, it's an hour and 40 minutes. It's pretty good, I think. Let me know if anything occurs to you. If you want to give that library of things document a closer read and give me feedback on it, feel free. Don't feel pressured, but I would love to hear from you on that. And so I will talk to some of you tomorrow at serial call number discussion. And some of you will hear from me about renewing membership in cataloging advisory, and everybody will hear from me about the Mark Online thing next week. So thanks so much. And I will talk to you all later.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye-bye.
Bye.